A very good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Keep saying that so that you can know that this podcast is listened to by very many people from different continents of this world and in different time zones. Whatever the case, you are welcome to another episode. This podcast is always about purpose, productivity, and it's always going to be about resilience. I do believe those three things are the pillars of life. For anyone who wants success, one who wants significance, they've got to be productive, they've got to have purpose, they've got to have direction, they've got to have resilience inside of them. We are in the middle of a series where we're tackling the idea, ladies and gentlemen, we're tackling the idea of self-deficiency, winning against self-deficiency. So we are going to continue talking about this, and I do believe, actually I do perceive that there is such an avalanche of information as far as this is concerned that we're not stopping talking about this anytime soon. We'll be looking at how we can be able to conquer self-deficiency, and today we're going to add one more big point, major point. Stay tuned.
Welcome to the Life Signatures podcast with Lawrence Namale. Lawrence is a life coach, author, and keynote speaker who loves to tackle different topics on purpose, productivity, and resilience. His mission in life is to awaken all your boundless possibilities available in you. Life Signatures podcast is dedicated to bring to reality every single person who knows that deep down in their gut, there's got to be more to life than this. And now, here is your host, Lawrence Namale.
Well, a recap will help us here so that we can know where we've been coming from. Number one, if you wanted to conquer self-deficiency, and actually I'm going to ask you to go back, if you've not listened to these ones, go back to the very many episodes back, maybe 10 episodes back, and see what we've been talking about. Number one, you've got to reclaim your self-identity, and don't have time to go through that. Number two, you've got to self-educate. Self-help is important in overcoming self-deficiency. Number three, discover and deploy your purpose. Absolutely important. Number four, take action. Actually, we ended talking about number four yesterday. We said that the different types of action you can be able to take. Number one, there is inspired action. Number two, there is consistent action. Number three, there is massive action. Number four, there is risk action or daring action that you can be able to take. And today, we are going to look at how we can also overcome self-deficiency in another way, but I'm going to explain it even as we go on. And this one might take a bit of time. And I will say it like a broken record. Self-deficiency will rob people of their greatness more than anything in life. Even if you have the greatness available to you, it is easy for you to be robbed of it by self-deficiency. You know, you can have people with self-deficiency in a palace, in a White House. I was talking about the other day where Joe Biden's administration is indicting Donald Trump 78 times. Why? Because they feel self-deficient, in my opinion. Actually, if they felt self-sufficient, they wouldn't even bother the man. Yeah, someone will say, oh, that's dirty politics and all. No, they feel self-deficient. They feel like we've got to stop this man in any way possible. We've got to get him out of the ballot in some of these states. Right? That is the spirit of self-deficiency at work. It is not dirty politics. It's just pure old self-deficiency, but I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to go there. I will not go there, ladies and gentlemen. Let's continue talking about this. Someone said that the enemy within must be conquered. If the enemy within me is conquered, the enemy without will do us no harm. That's an African saying. It is so true. The thing with self-deficiency is that it does not discriminate against people in any way. I mean, it doesn't. If Biden can feel self-deficient, how about you? You will find self-deficiency at the highest level you can ever expect. So we've got to fortify ourselves against this. In other words, self-deficiency is not something that you can conquer once and forget about it. It's not something you graduate from. No, you've got to keep doing some things. If you let your guard down, the enemy of self-deficiency must just sneak in at any point in time, and your heart will be unbeknown to you. You will just go. I mean, you not even realize that self-deficiency has come in. It is important, therefore, to fortify ourselves against this enemy of self-deficiency. That's what we need to do. What we need to do is to feed our internal power at levels of invincibility. So we've talked about these 4 things that you should do. But today, I'm going to start talking about something else. If you're going to overcome self-deficiency, this is a very important thing to do. And it's something that we can actually do daily. We need to be finishers. We need to learn to finish. Let me tell you, every time we start things and we leave them halfway, you know what it does? It sends information, insight. It sends spiritual data into our own very psyche, our own very spirits. Negative information, actually. And we start feeling apathy. The more we feel, the more we have unfinished business operating in our lives, the more apathetic we feel about our own very lives. And that's why we've got to learn to be finishers. Self-deficiency has many symptoms, and one of them is people shrinking back from life, and inherently they think that they do not deserve, or they're not good enough, and therefore they would rather not even bother participating in anything. And they do that because there is some unfinished business. I mean, people can say skeletons in the cupboard, but for them, there are very many things that they started and they did finish. The interesting thing that we have to do is the exact opposite of what self-deficiency is telling us to do, to take action. We talked about taking action. However, it is not just activity that will help you to fortify your inner self against self-deficiency. It's not just about taking action. It is finished, polished, excellent action that will be the thing that will be the icing on the cake of your self-efficacy and your personal power. Finished, excellent action, polished actually. You see, nothing bothers us more than having things that are undone, things that are unfinished, businesses that are hanging around our necks, assignments that we were to complete and we didn't complete, we procrastinated. If anything, the mere sight of unfinished business sends negative signals to us, to our psyche, and it feeds our self-deficiency. So we end up being stuck. And there is nothing worse in this life than being stuck on something that you could have done. You could have accomplished, you could have deployed, you could have done it. You could have done it, but you're stuck. You are tethered in your own mess. You're tethered in your own inactivity. You're tethered in your own unfinished business. Something that you were actually equipped to do. You had the strength to do it. You had the willpower to do it. You even had the motivation and the inspiration to do it. But it is unfinished for no good reason. Now you are stuck in it. And that is causing you to feel deficient. Taking action is a powerful way to start fighting self-deficiency. But something happens when you get engaged. Some chemicals are released in your system that makes you feel good. Those, however, are just temporary. We've got to have these feel-good factors cannot sustain the onslaught against self-deficiency. You cannot just work for feeling good. No, it has got to be overcome by some strong, tangible evidence of something that has been accomplished, something that has been finished. Feeling good is one thing, but looking at something that you've sculpted, you've finished, approved, done, dusted, polished with excellence, it is evidence that you have personal power. The opposite is true. Evidence that there is unfinished business tells you that there is some self-deficiency going on. The evidence is nothing but a finished action point. In other words, yes, let us feel good. Let us continue to feel good. Let the feel good factors be released from your body as you take action, and let them propel you, let them inspire, let them motivate you. But you've got to finish what you started. You've got to finish it. It is only once you have finished something that unequivocal message is sent, and it is hardwired, firmware. It is soldered into your soul, into your spirit, and into your brain, and into your psyche, that your personal self-efficiency is up. Your personal self-sufficiency is up. It is wired into your brain. We're going to start looking at how finishing helps you in the episodes that are coming up. We're going to look at 4 ways in which we can be able to finish. But let me teach you, even as we come to a close of today's episode, let me teach you, how do we really do finish? In fact, let's just start doing this. How do we finish? We're going to do one, and then we're going to do tomorrow. How do we finish? How do we set ourselves up to finish? Number 1, learn to plan. This goes without saying. Some of us, we don't plan. Jesus Christ said, a man who is setting himself up to go to war must of necessity find out how many soldiers he has vis-a-vis how many are coming up against him. Same thing with a man who wants to build a house. He must count the cost first. Sometimes we don't finish because we've not planned. We haven't planned ourselves at all. That's why we don't finish. Learn to plan. When you learn to plan, I think when you plan, when you have this dry run going on, it's like you've done it halfway. Some people feel like sitting back and planning is a waste of time. And they glorify action more than planning. Let me tell you something. Abraham Lincoln told us that if I'm given 6 hours to chop down a tree, I'm going to use 4 hours to sharpen my axe. That 4 hours is analogous to thinking, planning, strategizing, considering, so that by the time you start working, right, you are working on the right thing. You have the perfect direction, you have the perfect sharpness, you have the correct teams, the correct motivation. You know what's going to happen at what particular point. You know what reviews you need to make at what particular point. You know what milestones you've got to achieve because you planned. If we don't strategize, if we don't plan sometimes, that's why we don't finish. Then we're going to repeat the cycle. Start something else without planning and so on. We don't finish. We've got to learn to plan. Tomorrow we're going to look at one other thing that we need to do before we can learn how to finish. But until then, bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Life Signatures Radio. If you enjoyed today's show, subscribe to Life Signatures Radio on iTunes, Stitcher, or visit our website at lifesignatures.libsyn.com. Life Signatures Radio, fresh, clean, and inspiring.